let's have a look at the second presentation, which is about efficient and modular integration of sensor models with OSI. And we have two speakers. We have Marzena Franek. She's a research engineer at the Robert Bosch GmbH. And within the Z-level project, she's responsible for camera sensor model implementation. And our second speaker is Philipp Rosenberger. He is a research associate and a PhD candidate at the Technical University of Darmstadt. And within the Z-level project, he's doing the development of object and reflection-based LiDAR sensor models and working on the open simulation interface OSI. So very welcome, Marzena and Philipp. And the first speaker is Marzena, so please take over and have fun, Marzena.
So thanks for the nice introduction. In the following, I want to give a short introduction to the open simulation interface OSI, give an application to camera model and to the LiDAR models, and a conclusion outlook before we answer your questions. Cost-effective and reliable simulation architectures need standardized interfaces. Our sensor models use the open simulation interface OSI. As an overview, the environment simulation provides ground truth and sensor view information to the sensor model. In our case, we distinguish between camera, LiDAR, and radar-specific sensor view. The output of the sensor model is sensor data. This is the input to the logical model. The output is also sensor data, which is the input to the function. Here we distinguish between feature data and detected objects, for example, detected moving objects, detected stationary objects, detected traffic lights, and traffic signs. Here I want to give an overview about the model structure and interfaces of the object-based video sensor model. As mentioned, the environment simulation tool, for example, IPG CarMaker or DSpace ASM, provide ground truth information to the sensor model. Here it's the OSI's free ground truth moving objects, stationary objects, traffic signs, and traffic lights. The output of the sensor model are detected and tracked objects in host coordinates system. The interface here is OSI free detected moving objects, detected stationary objects, detected traffic lights, and detected traffic signs. Inside of the model, the video sensor model models phenomenological effects of the front video camera in the car. We divided it in 4 boxes: the detection sensing, the coordinate transformation, which is the transformation between vehicle or host coordinates, sensor coordinates, and world coordinates, the clustering, and the tracking simulation. Our object-based video sensor model is not idle. It models different uncertainties, for example, the existence uncertainty, whether an object captured by a sensor really exists, caused by detection uncertainties. For example, objects located in a field of view and in a defined range are detected. But objects located at the edge of a field of view and range zone are detected with lower existence probability than objects located in the middle and in the near of the camera. Also, we model occlusion. That means objects which are occluded by other objects will not be detected. In reality, often class uncertainties happen. For example, a car is classified as a truck, or a bicyclist is classified as a pedestrian. That's also modeled in our model. Furthermore, state uncertainties. That's the uncertainty in the state variables, such as object position, object velocity, caused by stochastic measuring error of the sensor technology. And finally, tracking uncertainties are modeled. In the following, I want to give a demonstration video for the object-based video sensor model in cooperation with IPG car maker. Here on the right side, you see the number of detected objects by the camera sensor. There are 2 moving objects detected, 40 traffic lights. It means every traffic lamp like red, green, and yellow are counted as 1 traffic light, and 2 traffic signs. The white car is not detected by the camera because it's occluded by the black car. Also, the pedestrian is not detected because it's occluded. The yellow boxes are the ground truth information from the environment simulation. The green bounding boxes are the camera detected objects. Then the car approaches the crossing. Here only 1 moving object is detected and 19 traffic lights. The other objects are not detected because they are not in the field of view of the camera sensor. Also, the pedestrian who crosses the street is not detected until now. Then the pedestrian crosses the street and then it approaches the field of view of the camera, is detected for a short time and leaves the field of view again. In the end, only the truck is detected as a moving object. I will repeat the video again. So you will see that the pedestrian's first detection happens when the pedestrian walks at the sidewalk because of the small field of view of the camera. So the pedestrian will not be detected when it crosses the street. In this video, I wanted to visualize the existence probability of the truck and the pedestrian. The truck's existence probability is visualized in blue, the pedestrian in green. The pedestrian reaches or approaches the field of view of the camera. The existence probability rises to 1, and then it leaves again the field of view of the camera, and the existence probability is 0 again, because it's not detected. Also interesting, when the truck, when the distance to the truck gets bigger, the existence probability falls. And then the car approaches the truck again, and the existence probability rises again to 1. Thank you for the attention. I will hand over now to Philipp Rosenberger, who will continue with the LiDAR simulation.
Yes, so thank you, Marzena. So for the LiDAR part, I'd like to pick up a slide from the presentation we had for the simulation use case 3, where we already were using the camera model we have seen, but also the LiDAR model I'm talking about. Here you see a picture of the same scenario already. It was already content in the video. And here you see on the left top corner the car maker visualization. On the bottom left, you see just the OSI logging output from the FMU. And on the right side, you see the visualization of the model output in ARVIS, which is part of the ROS ecosystem. And I'd like to mention that in this case, it's a reflection-based model. So reflections are generated within CarMaker using ray tracing and then passed via FMI and using the OSI standard to the model, which is then computing detections out of these reflections. So realistic LiDAR detections, also known as point clouds. So in the right part of the picture, these are visualized in color scale. And it's also visualized that the ego car is seen there as red box, and the ground truth objects are visualized as green boxes. And of special interest, the blue boxes that are also output of the model, because it's modeling the whole sensor system, and in this case outputting moving objects based on a tracking simulation. And to go more into detail about the integration and the functional mockup unit and functional mockup interface that is used, I've prepared some slides. Here you can see, which is always the most important part of the simulation, the FMU master, which is running the simulation. In this case, for example, it could be CarMaker or the DSpace ASM tool. Also others would be possible. And then the sensor model or sensor system model itself, which is implemented within the developed framework that is enabling the standard. The framework itself contains several strategies. So it is a modular architecture, and the model logic is parted. And also for every strategy or model part, there are parameters, of course, and they are structured as profiles, and they can be selected by the FMU master. So in this case, we are looking at the initial phase. So at first, the FMU master selects one of these parameter lists, so-called profiles, and then in the second step, these profiles are parameterized to the model, and in the third step, the model itself can send the selected sensor view configuration, which, for example, contains the mounting position of the sensor and several other parameters, back to the simulation master. And when the simulation is then running, the FMU master will send for each step the sensor view. So via the FMI, the OSI3 sensor view is sent that contains, for example, ground truth objects, static or dynamic, but also it contains, for example, the camera sensor view or the LiDAR sensor view in this case. And for every step, the model will then calculate the deviations from this ground truth and send back the sensor data, which, for example, can contain the LiDAR detections. And as I would say bypass, we also can integrate in the framework some strategies for visualization and post-processing. So, for example, outputting CSV files, and for visualization, for example, to the ROS environment for visualization in ARIS, as we have seen. So we were choosing a modular architecture because of the functional decomposition of several sensors we have performed and published in several papers. Here, for example, we had a more general view on this. So every sensor system has a front-end part, so sending some signals or at least receiving in case of a camera. And then first signal processing is done to the analog raw signals, or for example, ADC conversion, but also your first thresholding. Then you have the detections, data extraction from the detection and fusion. And finally, in actual sensor systems, often you see object tracking algorithms, also content of these systems. And therefore, we decided for a modular architecture. So, for example, if you have a look, so next slide, if you have a look on the object-based model that was used in simulation use case 2, which is running quite fast, for example, compared to the reflection-based we see later, it's using the same framework. In this case, just gets in the sensor view the ground truth moving objects, then has to transform them into its own coordinate system. Bounding box clipping is performed and occlusion is calculated in this. So you get the visible bounding box vertices as an intermediate interface. Then data extraction and segmentation takes place, where actual the bounding box vertices of these clipped and cut out objects are detected. And these kind of can be transferred already again in OSI standard, even as detections or logical detections in this case. and the tracking module takes place, which is performing all the object detection, dimension pose, velocity calculation, and so on. And finally, the visualization, as mentioned, and also some debugging outputs can be performed. And the framework itself is then handling the sensor data output back to the simulation master. And if we take a look at the reflection-based model, first thing to mention, the tracking and also the visualization modules in this case are the same as for the object-based, because of the modular architecture makes it possible to reuse these blocks. But of course, the front-end model is now handling reflections calculated with ray tracing within the tool. So they come within the OSI package, and then detection sensing takes place. So from the reflections, realistic LiDAR detections are generated. I've explained that in the simulation use case 3 presentation. So if you have not seen that and are interested in that, just take a look at the video later. Then LiDAR sensor fusion takes place and transformation into the vehicle coordinate system. This is necessary if you have more than one LiDAR sensor. And then, yeah, as already mentioned, after the segmentation, so sorting of detections to objects, the same tracking takes place. And this, I would say, again, stresses the usefulness of this modular framework. And as it is not only useful for LiDAR simulation, but also for other models, even for, I don't know, vehicle dynamics, for example, we have decided to put this framework open source, of course, and this is now subject to approval by ASAM. So this actually started this week, so it's quite fresh information. And it hopefully, and I'm pretty sure that it will be available later on GitHub at the ASAM open source platform. This is actually a quite new platform, and it is designed for stuff that kind of supplements the ASAM standards, so Open Simulation Interface or the other OpenX standards. So for tools or anything, for example, this framework. Yes. So in conclusion, what contributions did we produce so far? So as mentioned, the framework, also the logical detection data field and everything beneath that were found and developed within the set level project, and it's now already contained within the ASAM Open Simulation Interface version. We invested a lot of effort actually in the documentation as well. So, for example, to explain ground clearance a little bit better, and also all the mounting positions. Right now, there's work ongoing on coordinate systems and so on. So all this is done first in the set level project and then provided to the ASAM change control board for OSI for further discussion and hopefully for integration. So on our roadmap, we have several options. We think about, for example, updating sensor view configuration for LiDAR and radar to enhance this for, I would say, more efficient data structures. Also, model reference for 3D objects and materials to that will be investigated. Then we are thinking about replacing the Google protobuf that's used in OSI with Google Flatbuf. And of course, we will always keep improving documentation wherever we find it necessary. So thank you for the attention. And I guess now we have time for several questions on that.
Yes, so thank you very much, Marzena and Philipp, for these insights on sensor model integration. And now let's have a look what are the questions from the audience. So Frank, hit us with some questions.
Yes, I will do my best. So now there are some questions, in particular with a focus on the sensor model, how it is organized. So there's a question, is the sensor model is implemented in a single FMU or with multiple FMUs? Or there's another question in that area, raising the point, is it in a single FMU, or is it one in the car maker which is used? So can you elaborate a little bit on the model and the organization of the sensor model?
Okay, in my case for the camera sensor model, it's one FMU, and everything is integrated inside of the FMU. How does it look like for the LiDAR model?
Yes, in case of the LiDAR model, as I've mentioned, the framework so far provides the option that everything, so all modules are contained in one FMU. Of course, you could separate them if you'd like to. For example, you could separate every strategy, every module of this in a separate FMU. So, for example, it is planned that the visualization part is cut out and used just for visualization, for example, the output of the simulation tool. So you could, as the strategies, you could combine them as you'd like. For example, you can use it directly, just the visualization part with CarMaker to show the OSI output of this tool or other tools you'd like. So that's definitely planned for the next time to cut out some of these parts to use them on their own. Right now, we are using them combined.
So what is a guideline to make these decisions? So to decompose things or to put them together. So you said, okay, yeah, this is will be done. So what is the motivation? Are there some benefits from that or some drawbacks if you choose other solution? Maybe you can talk a little bit about this.
Yes, sure. So we were investigating the sensor systems, motivated actually by validation of the models. So if you kind of decompose them and find modules that you could validate on their own, then it's easier actually to validate them, because the parameter spaces will be smaller for each of the parts, and therefore validation should be possible, or at least more efficient. On the other side, with the functional decomposition, actually we gained a lot of insight into the sensors themselves, and it made also the simulation more easy. So it's not only very useful for validation afterwards, but also for designing several of the blocks. And you could, for example, split work and so on. So modularity helps a lot on several of these points. Yeah.
So are there some limitations of using multiple FMUs?
So far, I would say when you are using the OSI standard and transfer a lot of reflections or detections, so it would be not the best idea to split into several FMUs, because then you have to serialize and deserialize all the time in between. But if we find a solution, a more efficient way of transforming this data, probably as in the future, it wouldn't be that much of a problem. Right now, you definitely would have a problem.
Okay, thank you for these answers, and then also your colleagues. Is nice. There's one last very practical question. So how can you detect the traffic lights with the camera sensor model when they are facing away from the vehicle?
Okay, we have to improve our camera model. You're right. So that's that's something to improve for the next generation, for the next release.
Okay, so thank you for also giving that answer. Yeah, okay, we're done with the questions so far.
All right, so thank you very much. And thank you, Marzena, Philipp, for the answers and the presentation. And hope to see you later, maybe in the virtual coffee.